Mama Yasmin, I'm not ready to have this baby. Is there any way you can help me? Mama Yasmin looked at Said with kind but serious eyes. My dear, it's too late to get rid of the baby safely. It could be very dangerous for you. Said's heart sank. She didn't know what to do. But then Mama Yasmin said something that surprised her. If you don't want the baby, you can sell it after it's born. There are people who would pay a lot of money for a healthy child. Once upon a time, in a village far away, there lived a girl named Said. Said was very beautiful, with a kind heart that made everyone love her. She was always helpful and sweet, making people smile wherever she went. She loved to pick flowers by the riverside, and she would often bring the brightest flowers to her mother to decorate their small but cozy home. Sadi's father was a poor farmer. He worked hard every day in the fields, trying to grow enough food for his family. Said's mother was a trader. She sold little things in the market, doing her best to make sure they had what they needed. Even though they didn't have much, Said's family was happy. They loved each other very much, and laughter was always present in their home. In the evenings, they would sit outside their house under the moonlit sky, telling stories and dreaming of better days. Said had a few close friends. Together they walked to school every day. Said was very, very smart. She always listened to her teachers and studied hard. Because of this, she was always at the top of her class. Every week, the head teacher would smile at Said and say, Said, you are the best in the whole school. Then he would give her a little gift, like a shiny pencil or a small book. Said felt proud and happy because she knew she was making her parents proud too. The villagers all knew and loved Said. They would say, Said is a good girl. She's going to do great things one day. And Said would smile, dreaming of a bright future. She dreamed of becoming a teacher so she could help children learn, just like her favorite teachers had helped her. As Said grew older, she reached her final year in school. During this time, she became very close to a girl named Lami. Lami was not as smart as Said, and she wasn't as pretty either, but she had a way of doing things that were different, sometimes not very good. The other girls in the village noticed this. They would say to Said, Said, be careful with Lami. She doesn't always make good choices. But Said didn't listen. She liked Lami and wanted to be her friend. One day, Said went to school with an empty stomach. There was no food at home, and her parents couldn't give her anything to eat. She felt very hungry and sad. But when she arrived at school, she saw Lami carrying 2 plates of food. Lami smiled and said, Said, I brought this for you. I made it just for my special friend. Said was surprised and very thankful. Thank you so much, Lami, she said, and they sat down to eat together. From that day, their friendship grew even stronger. Said felt grateful to have a friend like Lami, who was there for her when she needed it. Even though Lami wasn't the best influence, and she sometimes did things that weren't right, Said continued to do well in school. She still listened to her teachers and studied hard. Said believed that as long as she stayed true to herself, everything would be okay. After Said and Lami finished school, they began spending a lot of time together. They would walk through the village, visit the market, and talk about everything. Said noticed that Lami always had nice clothes, pretty jewelry, and other things that Said couldn't afford. This made Said curious. One day, Said asked Lammy. How do you get all these nice things? Where does the money come from? Lammy smiled and said, It's from a man named Kunli. He gives me money and buys me gifts. Said didn't understand, but why would he do that? What do you do for him? Lammy looked around to make sure no one was listening. Then she whispered, I sleep with Kunlo, and he gives me money. It's easy, and I get whatever I want. Said was shocked. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. But what if you get pregnant, Lammy? Aren't you scared? Lammy shook her head and laughed. Don't worry, Said. I know how to take care of that. I won't get pregnant. It's nothing to be afraid of. Said felt confused and worried. She had never thought about doing something like that. But Lammy made it sound so simple, so easy. Said didn't know what to think, but she trusted her friend. Lammy seemed so confident, and Said didn't want to lose her friendship, so she kept quiet and continued to follow Lammy's lead, even though deep inside she felt something wasn't right. One bright morning, Said was on her way to Lammy's house when she met a man named Emeka. Emeka was young and handsome, and he was well known in the village. He was a palm wine tapper, and he owned a big farm where he made the sweetest palm wine anyone had ever tasted. Emeka was not only hard-working, but also very kind. He often gave free palm wine to the elders in the village during community gatherings, and he was well loved by all. As they talked, Emeka looked at Sad and smiled. He liked her gentle nature and her beauty. Before they parted ways, Emeka reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Inside was a pair of beautiful earrings. He handed them to Said and said, These are for you, Said. I hope they bring a smile to your face. Said was surprised and happy. Thank you, Emeka. They are so beautiful, she said, her eyes shining with gratitude. She wore the earrings proudly, and the villagers noticed the sparkle in her ears, often complimenting her on how lovely they looked. From that day on, Said started meeting Emeka every day. They would talk, laugh, and sometimes walk together to his farm. Emeka always made Said feel special, and she began to look forward to their time together. They would sit under the shade of the palm trees, sharing stories about their hopes and dreams. Said felt like she had finally found someone who truly cared for her. As days passed, Said and Emeka grew closer. One day, in a quiet moment, they ended up sleeping together. Said felt a mix of emotions. She liked Emeka very much, but she also felt unsure about what they had done. She thought about her parents and the values they had taught her, and a sense of guilt began to creep into her heart. While this was happening, Said's parents were busy planning her future. They wanted her to learn a skill that would help her in life, so they decided to send her to another village called Noma. Noma was known for its skill training and bustling market, and they thought it would be a good place for Said to grow. But a few weeks after being with Emeka, Said realized something that made her heart sink. She was pregnant. Nervously, she went to Emeka and told him the news, hoping he would stand by her. But instead, Emeka shook his head and said, No, Said, I'm not responsible for that. It's not my child. His words were cold, and he turned away from her. Said felt crushed and alone. The man she thought cared for her had rejected her in her time of need. Now, with a baby on the way, she didn't know what to do. After being rejected by Emeka, Said felt lost and scared. Her parents, not knowing about her troubles, sent her off to Noma village to learn a trade. They wanted her to have a skill that would help her in life. Noma was a big village, famous for its skill training and busy markets. People came from far and wide to learn and trade there. As Sad left her parents' house, she felt a mix of emotions. She was excited about learning something new, but she was also very scared about what was happening with her baby. When she arrived in Noma, she stayed with a distant aunt who lived near the market. The aunt was kind and welcomed Said into her home, but Said couldn't stop thinking about the baby growing inside her. She didn't want to have it. She didn't want to have it. She didn't know how she could take care of a baby all by herself. So she decided to visit a midwife in the village. This midwife was known as Mama Yasmin, and she was the one people went to when they needed help with their pregnancies. Said went to Mama Yasmin and explained her situation. Mama Yasmin, I'm not ready to have this baby. Is there any way you can help me? Mama Yasmin looked at Said with kind but serious eyes. My dear, it's too late to get rid of the baby safely. It could be very dangerous for you. Said's heart sank. She didn't know what to do. But then Mama Yasmin said something that surprised her. If you don't want the baby, you can sell it after it's born. There are people who would pay a lot of money for a healthy child. Said was shocked at first. Sell the baby, she asked. But as she thought about it, a new feeling came over her. She could make money from this. Maybe this was a way to solve her problems. She wouldn't have to take care of the baby, and she would have money to live on. Said looked at Mama Yasmin and nodded. Okay, I'll do it, she said, feeling a mix of relief and excitement. Now, instead of worrying about the baby, she started to focus on the idea of making money. Said's thoughts were no longer on learning a trade, but on having her baby so she could sell it. She didn't feel the usual excitement or worry that other mothers might feel. Instead, she was focused on the idea of making money. As the months passed, Said's belly grew, and soon it was time for the baby to arrive. Mama Yasmin, the midwife, was ready. She had already found a buyer who wanted a child. When the day came, Said gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. The baby cried loudly, full of life, and Mama Yasmin placed the little girl in Saad's arms. Said looked at her daughter and felt nothing. She didn't feel the love or attachment that new mothers usually feel. Instead, she thought about the 500 gold coins and the shiny jewelry that were waiting for her. After breastfeeding the baby, Said handed her over to Mama Yasmin, who took the child to the buyer. The buyer was pleased and gave Said the promised gold coins and jewelry. Said looked at the money in her hands and felt excited. She didn't think about the baby she had just sold. All she could think about was how much money she had now. With the gold coins jingling in her pocket and the jewelry sparkling in her hands, Said made a decision. This is better than learning a trade, she thought. I can make more money by selling babies. It didn't take long for Said to get pregnant again. This time it was with a man named Jeed. Jeed was just another man in the village, and when Said told him she was expecting his baby, he reacted just like Emeka had. Jeed shook his head and said, That's not my baby, Said. I don't want anything to do with it. But Said didn't feel sad or worried. Instead, she felt happy. She was already thinking about the money she could make from selling this baby too. Without wasting any time, she ran to Mama Yasmin's hut, full of excitement. Mama Yasmin, I'm pregnant again, Said said, almost dancing with joy. Mama Yasmin looked at Said with concern. Said, you must be careful. Selling babies is not something to take lightly. It can lead to a path of regret. But Said didn't want to hear it. She smiled and said, "This is the path I've chosen, Mama. I'm going to keep doing this. It's the best way for me to make money." Mama Yasmin sighed, but she knew Said wouldn't listen. So she helped Said through the pregnancy just as she had before. After 9 months, Said gave birth to a baby boy. He was strong and healthy, crying loudly as he came into the world. But Said didn't feel the need to hold him or even look at him. She knew the buyers were already outside waiting. Without a second thought, she handed the baby over to Mama Yasmin, who took him to the buyers. This time, the payment was even greater. The buyers gave Said 2,000 gold coins and more jewelry, even more beautiful than before. Said was thrilled. The money was more than she had ever imagined. She didn't think about the baby she had just sold, only about the wealth she was accumulating. As Said looked at her growing pile of gold and jewels, she felt powerful. She believed she had found the perfect way to get rich, and nothing else seemed to matter. She was determined to continue down this path, no matter what anyone said. Said's plan worked even better than she had imagined. She became very rich very quickly. Each time she got pregnant, she sold the baby and collected more gold coins and jewels. The more babies she sold, the richer she became. Soon, Said was living a life of luxury in Noma village. She had the finest clothes, the most beautiful jewelry, and anything else she wanted. But as Said's wealth grew, so did Mama Yasmin's concern. One day, Mama Yasmin's concern. One day, Mama Yasmin sat down and said, "Said, you must stop selling your babies. They are your future, your own flesh and blood. You can't keep doing this." But Said just laughed and waved her hand. "Don't worry, Mama Yasmin. I have many more children inside me. I'll keep making money this way, and nothing will stop me." Said didn't listen to the warnings. She was too focused on her riches and the easy life she was living. She sent money and gifts back to her parents in her village, who were amazed by how much she had. They didn't know where all this money was coming from, but they were proud of their daughter for doing so well in Noma village. By the time Said decided to return to her village, she had sold 10 of her babies. Each sale had made her richer and more powerful. She felt on top of the world, believing that nothing could go wrong. With her bags full of gold and jewels, Sad was ready to go back home and show everyone how successful she had become. She didn't think about the babies she had sold or the warnings she had ignored. All she cared about was the wealth she had gathered and the luxurious life she had built for herself. When Said finally returned to her village, she looked so different that even her own parents didn't recognize her at first. She was dressed in the finest clothes, her skin glowed, and she had expensive jewelry that sparkled in the sunlight. The villagers gathered around, amazed at how beautiful and rich she had become. "Who is this beautiful woman?" They whispered to each other, unable to believe that this was the same Said who had left them. It was Lami, Saad's old friend, who first recognized her. "Saad, is that really you?" Lami shouted, running up to her and hugging her tightly. The villagers were astonished. This was Saad, the girl who had left to learn a trade in Noma village. They celebrated her return with joy and admiration. With all the money she had made, Said built herself a big, beautiful house. She didn't stop there. She also rebuilt her parents' house, making it grand and comfortable. Her parents were proud, thinking their daughter had done so well in life. Said lived alone in her grand house, surrounded by all the wealth she had gathered from selling her babies. She enjoyed the luxury and comfort her money brought her, and she didn't have to worry about anything. The men in the village were captivated by her beauty and success. Many of them asked her to marry them, thinking they could share in her wealth and happiness. But Said always said no. "I don't need a husband," she would say with a smile. She was content with her riches and didn't see any reason to get married. Said believed that she had everything she needed. She was rich, beautiful, and admired by everyone in the village. To her, life seemed perfect, and she didn't think about the cost of her wealth or the future that might lie ahead. As time went on, Said's parents began to worry about her. They saw that she was rich and successful, but she wasn't married. In their hearts, they believed that having a husband and children would bring true joy and happiness to Said's life. One day, her mother gently said, "Said, you have everything, but you are alone. It's important to have a husband and children to complete your happiness." Said thought about what her mother said. Although she had always been happy with her riches, she began to wonder if something was missing. Maybe her parents were right. Soon after, Said met a man named Toby. Toby was also rich and came from a well-respected family in the village. He was kind, handsome, and seemed to care deeply for Said. They spent time together, and before long, Toby proposed to Said. She agreed, thinking that marriage would finally make her life complete. The wedding was a grand affair, with the whole village invited. There was music, dancing, and feasting, and everyone talked about how beautiful the couple looked together. Said felt happy and hopeful as she started this new chapter in her life. But as the months turned into years, something troubled Said. 2 years had passed, and she still hadn't gotten pregnant. Toby's mother, who was eager for grandchildren, began to pressure Said. She would often say, "Why haven't you given us a child yet, Said? A wife's duty is to bring children into the family." Said tried to stay hopeful, but the pressure kept growing. One day, Toby's mother could no longer hide her frustration. She stormed into their home and shouted, "Said, you are barren. You can't stay in this house any longer. My son needs a wife who can give him children." Said was heartbroken. She loved Toby and didn't want to leave, but his mother's words were final. With tears in her eyes, Said packed her belongings and left Toby's house. She returned to her own home, feeling empty and alone. The marriage that she thought would bring her happiness had ended in sorrow. Said realized that all the riches in the world couldn't fill the void left by her inability to have a child. As she sat in her grand house, surrounded by the wealth she had accumulated, Said felt a deep sadness. She had everything she thought she wanted, but now she was more alone than ever. After being sent away by Toby's mother, Said tried to rebuild her life. She hoped to get married again, thinking that maybe, just maybe, she could find happiness with another man. But no matter how hard she tried, no man wanted to stay with her because she couldn't have children. Word spread quickly in the village, and people began to see Said differently. They whispered behind her back, and the suitors who once flocked to her now stayed away. One day, out of the blue, Emeka, the very first man who had denied her when she was pregnant, came to her house. He looked serious and demanded, "Said, where is my child? The child you were carrying when you left the village." Said's heart raced. She didn't want to admit what she had done, so she lied. I lost the baby, Emeka. I had a miscarriage. Emeka looked at her, his eyes filled with doubt, but he left without another word. Just when Said thought the worst was over, two more men came knocking at her door on different days, each asking the same question. Where is my child, Said? To both men she gave the same answer. I lost the baby. I had a miscarriage. But Said's lies didn't stay hidden for long. A villager who had been listening in on one of the conversations overheard everything. This villager knew the truth about what Saad had been doing in Noma village. Without hesitation, they told the men, Said didn't lose your babies. She sold them. She's been selling her children to get rich. The men were shocked and furious. The news spread like wildfire through the village. People couldn't believe what they were hearing. The men who had come to Said, now knowing the truth, were filled with rage. They returned to her house, this time with a crowd of angry villagers behind them. Give us back our children, Saad, they demanded, their voices loud and threatening. If you don't, we'll burn down your house. Saad stood frozen, fear gripping her heart. The wealth she had gathered, the life she had gathered, the life she had built, all of it was crumbling around her. The villagers who once admired her now looked at her with disgust and anger. Said realized that her actions had finally caught up with her, and the consequences were more terrible than she had ever imagined. With her heart heavy and her mind full of fear, Said knew she had no choice but to try to find the children she had sold. She traveled back to Noma village, desperate to undo the wrong she had done. When she arrived, she went straight to Mama Yasmin's hut, hoping the midwife could help her. Mama Yasmin, seeing the sorrow in Said's eyes, sighed deeply. Sad, I warned you not to take this path. Now you must face the consequences of your actions. Please, Mama Yasmin, help me find the children. I need to bring them back, or the villagers will destroy everything I have. Mama Yasmin handed her a piece of paper with the addresses of the people who had bought the babies. These are the people who took your children. But be warned, Said, they may not be willing to return them. And once you leave, don't come back here again. Said nodded and took the paper, her heart pounding. She traveled far and wide, knocking on doors, pleading with the people who had bought her children. But her efforts were in vain. Some of the people denied ever knowing her, while others refused to return the children, saying they were now part of their families. Each rejection cut deep into Said's soul, and she felt the weight of her choices crushing her spirit. After many fruitless attempts, Said returned to her village in shame. The villagers were waiting for her, their anger still burning. They didn't care about the gold and jewels she had once flaunted to them. Said was no longer a symbol of success, but a reminder of greed and betrayal. Her parents were devastated by the news. They couldn't believe what their daughter had done. They regretted sending her away without checking on her and not teaching her the dangers of loving money too much. The weight of the shame was too much for Said's mother to bear, and she passed away, leaving Said feeling even more alone and broken. In a final act of repentance, Said gave away all her money and her house, but the villagers rejected her offerings, not wanting anything that came from such a dark place. Determined to make amends in any way she could, Said sold everything and gave the money to the less fortunate. Then, with just a small bag, she left the village, carrying nothing but her sorrow and regret. Said settled at the entrance of the village, far from the life of luxury she once knew. She lived alone, spending her days in quiet reflection, haunted by the memories of the children, haunted by the memories of the children she had sold and the life she could have had. Though she found some peace within herself, the loneliness never left her. She realized too late the terrible mistakes she had made. Said's story became a lesson for all the children in the village. Parents would tell their children, "Remember Said, who traded her future for gold. She had everything but lost it all because she couldn't see what truly mattered." Said led the rest of her life in solitude, her heart full of regret. And as she sat by the entrance of the village, she hoped that her story would help others avoid the path she had taken. She learned that true wealth wasn't in gold or jewels, but in the love and life she had once taken for granted. Said's story reminds us all of the dangers of greed and the consequences of losing sight of what truly matters. Her journey from wealth and luxury to regret and isolation serves as a powerful lesson on the importance of love, family, and integrity. True happiness does not come from gold or jewels, but from the bonds we share and the choices we make. Let us learn from Sadi's mistakes and strive to value what is truly priceless in life. Thank you for joining me today. Until next time. Remember to choose wisely and cherish those you love. In a village where the sky met the earth and where traditions were as old as the whispering baobab trees, there lived a woman named Layla. Layla was enchanting. Her eyes were dark pools of wisdom, and her laughter had the power to make the sternest elder smile. Yet, despite her beauty and charm, she remained unmarried. Tired of her solitude and desperate to find a husband, Layla consulted the oracle, a wizened old woman named Zara, who could commune with the ancestors in a hut that smelled of herbs and ancient scrolls, with dried flowers hanging from the ceiling and a faint glow of candles adding an aura of mystery. Zara spoke, "Child, your destiny is unlike any other. The man who fathers your child will become the ruler of this village, and his reign will bring unparalleled prosperity." Intrigued and emboldened, Layla devised a radical plan. She would sleep with every eligible man in the village. This way, she reasoned, she would not only find her destined husband, but also secure the best future ruler for her people. As weeks turned into months, the village began to buzz with rumors. Layla's unconventional search for a husband became the talk at every gathering, around every fire. Finally, Layla found herself with child. She was radiant, her belly round and full, a living testament to the prophecy. As her due date approached, tension thickened in the air. Each family with an eligible son began to claim the unborn child as their own, laying their stake to the future chieftainship. In the middle of this maelstrom, Layla gave birth to a healthy baby boy. The village rejoiced, but the joy was short-lived, for the next problem was immediate and pressing. Who was the father of this child, born to rule? Elders convened. Wives gossiped. Warriors sharpened their spears. Everyone had a theory, and every man wanted a test. The village was on the brink of a civil war, and only the true identification of the child's father could bring peace. Yet Layla remained serenely confident. She knew that the prophecy would not fail her, nor would it fail her people. And so, with her newborn son cradled in her arms, she awaited the revelation that would change the fate of her village forever. A week had passed since the birth of Layla's son, whom she named Malik, meaning he who reigns. It seemed as though Malik was indeed knocking at the door of a new era for the village, one fraught with uncertainty and anticipation. The council of elders the esteemed body responsible for making major decisions in the village convened under the oldest baobab tree. Its gnarled branches seemed to sag with the weight of the momentous decision ahead. Our ancestors have always shown us the way in times of both harmony and discord, said Bako, the eldest among them, his voice trembling like the last leaves of autumn. We must seek their wisdom to resolve this crisis. Just then, Zara, the oracle, stepped into the circle, her eyes glowing with a fire that seemed almost supernatural. I have spoken with the ancestors, Zara began, her voice a mesmerizing melody that silenced even the cicadas. They propose a test, one that will reveal not just the father of young Malik, but also the future leader of our people. Murmurs spread through the council, even among the elders who had seen many harvests and many seasons. This was unprecedented. The test, continued Zara, will require each potential father to undertake a journey to the sacred mountain. At its peak lies a stone, not just any stone, a moonstone imbued with the wisdom of our ancestors. The man who returns with this stone will be deemed the true father and the destined ruler of our village. A collective gasp filled the air. The sacred mountain was a place of many perils. Wild beasts, treacherous terrain, and above all, spiritual trials that could break even the strongest will. Yet the council of elders knew there was no other way. After a moment of ponderous silence, Baco spoke. Then it is decided. Each claimant will set forth at dawn, 3 days hence. May the ancestors guide us. As the council dispersed, a kaleidoscope of emotions filled the village square. Excitement, fear, hope, all woven together in a tapestry as intricate as life itself. Layla, holding Malik close to her chest, felt a calm assurance wash over her. The ancestors had set the stage, and now it was up to the men to prove their mettle. But even she couldn't foresee the twists and turns that lay ahead, for the journey to the sacred mountain was one that would bring surprising revelations, ones that would change the village and its people in ways they had never imagined. As dawn broke 3 days later, a sense of expectant hush enveloped the village. The air was thick with the smell of burning sage, as incense billowed from the homes, seeking the blessings of the ancestors for the journey ahead. 6 men stood at the village square, each representing a different family claiming Malik as their kin. Their garments were adorned with symbols of their respective lineages, and the tension among them was almost palpable. Their faces were a canvas of emotions, eagerness, fear, and a simmering excitement that seemed almost palpable. Layla, cradling Malik in her arms, watched them quietly, her eyes meeting each of theirs, a wordless message that seemed to say, "May the best man win." With a blow of a horn and the beat of drums, the journey began. The rhythmic pounding of the drums echoed through the village, sending shivers down the spines of those watching. Each man carried a satchel filled with offerings, kola nuts, palm wine, and sacred amulets to honor the spirits of the sacred mountain. The path was laden with challenges, both physical and mystical. Rivers that twisted like serpents, forests that whispered secrets, and caves that echoed with the laughter and cries of forgotten souls. However, the real test lay at the foot of the sacred mountain. A stone altar stood there, inscribed with ancient runes that told tales of heroes and gods, love and betrayal. One particular rune depicted a warrior standing with a radiant shield, symbolizing courage in the face of insurmountable odds. Beside the altar was a pool of water so clear it mirrored their deepest fears and desires. As the men reached the altar, a voice echoed around them, a voice so ethereal it seemed to belong to the mountain itself. Offer what you value most, and you may proceed. The voice resonated, filling the air with an unspoken gravity. One by one, the men approached the altar. Some offered gold, others heirlooms passed down through generations, but nothing happened. The way to the peak remained sealed, as if mocking their futile attempts. Finally, it was Idris's turn. Idris was not the wealthiest or the strongest among them, but he was known for his wisdom and humility. Once he had given up his own share of food to help a starving family during a harsh winter, earning the respect of the entire village. Instead of placing an object on the altar, he knelt and offered a prayer for the village, for Layla, and for the unborn generations who would inherit the earth. As he finished, the altar glowed a soft, radiant light, and the path to the peak opened up, as if summoned by his sincerity. Awed and humbled, the men followed Idris as he led the way. The weight of their journey seemed a little lighter, the resolve a little stronger, bound by the newfound understanding that true leadership required more than just wealth or strength. It required the wisdom of the heart. The ascent up the sacred mountain was unlike any other climb. Every step seemed to be a dance between the earthly and the divine, where physical exertion met spiritual enlightenment. The men felt their breaths grow shorter, but their senses heightened. Every rock, every gust of wind appeared imbued with ancestral wisdom. Finally, they reached the peak, where the night sky seemed to be within arm's reach, twinkling stars bearing witness to this pivotal moment in the village's history. There it was, the moonstone, glowing softly in the moonlight, almost as if pulsating with the heartbeat of the mountain itself. Idris approached the stone first, his hands trembling as he touched its cool surface. The moonstone lit up, its glow intensifying into a radiant beam that shot up towards the sky, returning as a cascade of light that enveloped him. Son of Jari, a celestial voice echoed, you have proven your worth. This child is yours, and you are destined to lead your people. Overwhelmed by emotion, Idris fell to his knees. The men who accompanied him were silent, humbled, and awed by the revelation, their prior envy and rivalry dissipating like morning mist. As they descended the mountain, the village came into sight, bathed in the soft glow of dawn. The men felt different, transformed not just by the revelation, but also by the journey itself. It was as if they had shed layers of ignorance and ego, revealing new skins of wisdom and humility. When they arrived, the entire village had gathered, the tension in the air palpable, a sea of faces, anxious and expectant. Idris stepped forward, holding the moonstone high for all to see. The ancestors have spoken, he declared. I am the father of Malik, and it is my destiny to lead this village. A collective gasp followed, then a roar of cheers and ululations. The elders nodded in approval, their faith in ancestral wisdom reaffirmed. Layla, with Malik in her arms, walked over to Idris. Their eyes met, and in that moment, all the complexities and hardships seemed to melt away, leaving behind a pure, unspoken understanding. As Idris took his son in his arms for the first time, the village erupted in joyous celebration. But Layla knew that this was just the beginning. They had averted a crisis and perhaps even started a new chapter in their history. But the real work lay ahead in raising a child destined for greatness and leading a village towards prosperity. Yet with the moonstone as their guiding light and ancestral wisdom in their hearts, they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead together. Several moons had passed since the day Idris was declared the father of Malik and the future leader of the village. A sense of peace and prosperity seemed to have settled over the community, a testament to the prophecy foretold, or so it seemed. One fateful evening, as Layla was nursing Malik under the shadow of the family hut, she overheard a hushed conversation from behind the thick baobab tree that stood sentinel near her home. "You've done well, Idris. The village expects nothing, and the prophecy appears fulfilled." The raspy voice of Zara, the oracle, was unmistakable. "My conscience is troubled, Zara. We have deceived the people who trust us, and I am raising a son who is not truly mine." Idris's voice quivered with regret. "Ah, but you will be a wise and kind ruler. Isn't that what's best for the village? A benevolent deception, I call it." Zara responded, her tone chillingly casual. Layla's heart sank. Betrayal, like a stealthy serpent, had entered her garden of trust. As she looked at Malik, innocent and oblivious, a new resolve formed in her mind. The villagers might have been deceived, but they deserved the truth, especially when a future leader was in question. And her son, Malik, deserved to know his true heritage. But how would she expose this conspiracy without plunging the village into chaos once again? Layla knew she had to tread carefully. The moonstone, the very symbol of Idris's supposed legitimacy, suddenly seemed to her like the lock to a secret, a secret, a secret that only the true father could unlock. As the village slept, unaware of the storm that was quietly brewing, Layla began to formulate a plan, a test so definitive it would reveal the true father without doubt or dispute. But first, she had to ensure the moonstone's authenticity. For if the moonstone was part of the deception, its mystical power could still point to the real father, provided it was subjected to a ritual known only to the most enlightened sages. And so, under the veil of night, Layla set forth to consult the only person outside the village who could help her, the hermit sage of the ebony forest. Layla's journey through the ebony forest was fraught with risks, hidden pitfalls, nocturnal predators, and the ever-menacing darkness. But a mother's determination knows no bounds, especially when the future of her child is at stake. Deep within the forest, where ancient trees seem to touch the heavens, Layla finally reached the secluded dwelling of the hermit sage. With a long flowing beard and eyes that held the wisdom of ages, the sage welcomed her. "I have been expecting you, Layla," the sage began. "The forest whispers tales, and your plight has not gone unnoticed." Gathering her composure, Layla told the sage everything: the birth of Malik, the journey to the sacred mountain, and the overheard conspiracy between Idris and Zara. "I seek the truth, wise one," she concluded. "Can the moonstone still reveal Malik's true father?" The hermit sage stroked his beard thoughtfully before speaking. "The moonstone is an ancient relic of truth. Its power can be manipulated, but it cannot be entirely corrupted. There exists a ritual, lost to time, but known to me, that can cleanse the stone of any deceptions." Hope kindled in Layla's eyes as she listened intently to the sage. "You must perform the ritual of truth on the night of the new moon. The moonstone, bathed in the sacred waters of the Whispering Lake and subjected to this ritual, will shine only in the hands of the true Father. Armed with newfound hope and the elaborate instructions from the hermit sage, Lila thanked him and journeyed back to the village, her heart pounding with a mixture of hope, fear, and anticipation. She arrived just before dawn. Slipping back into her home unnoticed, in her eyes was a glimmer of resolve, for she knew what had to be done next. Retrieve the moonstone from its guarded sanctuary and prepare it for the ritual of truth. The stakes were sky high. If she succeeded, the entire village would finally know the truth. But if she failed, she risked not just her own reputation, but the very peace and harmony that currently blanketed her community. As she laid Malik back into his crib, she looked at her son, his small face serene in sleep, completely unaware of the turmoil surrounding his young life. The new moon was just 3 nights away, and Layla knew that the future of her family and her village would be irrevocably altered by what the moonstone would reveal, or what it would fail to. As the new moon approached, Layla felt time compressed, each second loaded with impending revelation or disastrous consequence. She had managed to discreetly acquire the moonstone from its sanctuary with the help of a sympathetic guard who believed in her quest for truth. Now it lay hidden beneath the floorboards of her hut, pulsing as if aware of its imminent role. Finally, the night of the new moon arrived. With Malik safely asleep and Idris away at a council meeting, Layla seized her opportunity. She unearthed the moonstone and set off towards Whispering Lake, a secluded body of water said to possess cleansing energies. Cloaked in darkness, her heart pounding in sync with her steps, Layla reached the lake and began the ritual of truth. She submerged the moonstone into the water, reciting the ancient incantations the hermit sage had imparted to her. As the last syllable left her lips, the moonstone glowed a soft white light, illuminating the dark waters. For a moment, Layla felt a ripple of energy course through her, as if the spirits of the lake whispered their approval. With the moonstone now cleansed and activated, she returned to the village, her every step shadowed by both anticipation and dread. Tonight, the village would gather for the Feast of Ancestors, a night of celebration, but for Layla, a night that would bear witness to either her ultimate vindication or her deepest disgrace. At the feast, as the villagers danced and sang, Layla revealed the moonstone, claiming it had been further empowered by the spirits for a special blessing. The crowd, high on communal fervor and intrigue, was eager to witness the spectacle. As per the ancient rites, let each potential father hold the stone, Lila announced, her voice unwavering. The true father of Malik will activate its light. One by one, the men came up, each gripping the moonstone tightly, but the stone remained inert, its light dim, as if withholding its power. Finally, it was Idris's turn. The crowd held its collective breath. Idris held the stone, and it flickered but did not fully illuminate. Murmurs swept through the crowd, turning into exclamations of surprise and confusion. Before anyone could speak, a voice erupted from the back. Wait! The stone speaks, not just to the hands that hold it, but to the eyes that meet it. Layla, look upon the stone. It was Zara, her eyes gleaming with a peculiar mix of fear and excitement. Layla lifted her gaze to meet Idris, her eyes then dropping to the moonstone. At that moment, the stone flickered violently and then went dark. Gasps filled the air. Idris's face turned ashen. Layla's eyes met the crowd's, and in that moment, they all knew Idris was not the true father. The silence was shattered by Zara's maniacal laughter. You see, even the best laid plans falter before the will of the spirits. In the aftermath of the failed ritual, the village was consumed by a volatile mix of disbelief, anger, and urgent curiosity. The elders called for an immediate council meeting, its atmosphere charged with tension, thicker than the humid night air. Zara was the first to speak, her voice dripping with a blend of regret and revelation. My fellow villagers, we've been entangled in a web of deceit. The spirits have spoken through the moonstone. Idris is not the true father. However, this should be a time of awakening, not division. The council erupted into a cacophony of arguments and accusations. Finally, the chief elder Bako rose, his age-old wisdom commanding silence. Enough, he boomed. The ancestral spirits are not pleased with our folly. We must seek the truth and not let division tear us apart. Turning to Layla, he said, "You've invoked the spirits and unearthed a terrible truth. What do you propose we do now?" Layla's voice was firm. "I propose another ritual, one that cannot be tampered with. Let every man in the village come forth and take an ancestral oath by the river of truth. There they will declare their paternity, and the river, a divine witness, will reveal the true father." The council agreed, setting the ritual for the following dawn. No one slept that night, their dreams disturbed by whispers of scandal and winds of change. As the first light of dawn broke, the village gathered by the river of truth, its waters said to have been blessed by the gods. One by one, the men took the ancestral oath, swearing their innocence or guilt. Finally, it was Idris's turn. He stepped forward, his eyes meeting Layla's. In that moment, Layla saw a flicker of something. Was it regret or perhaps a silent plea for forgiveness? Idris dipped his hand into the river, solemnly reciting the oath. As he spoke, the waters around his hand turned ominously but did not change color, the sign of a truthful oath. The crowd was in suspense, awaiting a divine sign. Just then, a cry erupted from the back of the gathering. All eyes turned to see a young man, Rafi, trembling as the waters around his submerged hand turned a radiant gold, the irrefutable sign of truth recognized in divine rituals. Rafi, son of Toma, Elder Bako, announced, "You are the true father of Malik, as declared by the river of truth." A collective gasp swept through the crowd. Rafi was one of the most reclusive men in the village, known for his quiet nature and rarely involved in communal affairs. As Rafi hesitantly stepped forward, Layla's eyes met his. In that brief connection, she saw flashes of integrity and sincerity, characteristics she had yearned for, but not found until now. The revelation of Rafi as the true father shook the very foundations of the village. Murmurs echoed among the crowd as Rafi approached Layla and Malik, his eyes full of humility and a quiet kind of strength. Elder Bako stepped forward, his presence silencing the crowd. The river of truth has spoken. Rafi is the father, and we must honor this divine verdict. He looked towards Idris and Zara, his eyes narrowing. As for those who led us astray, they shall face the council of elders for their actions. Rafi took his place beside Layla and Malik. In that moment, Layla felt a new chapter in their lives was about to begin, one marked by honesty, respect, and love, things that had been so lacking in her recent past. As the rightful father, I will do my best to live up to this responsibility, Rafi declared, his voice tinged with genuine resolve. The villagers dispersed, their hearts and minds churning with a blend of relief, curiosity, and lingering doubt. The atmosphere was electric, and a sense of anticipation filled the air. It was clear that things would never be the same again. That evening, the Council of Elders met in an emergency session to discuss the fate of Idris and Zara. The chamber was tense as elders weighed the implications of their decision. Finally, they arrived at a verdict. Idris was stripped of his title and status, mandated to perform public service as a sign of atonement. Zara was banished from her role as oracle, her position to be filled by a new seer chosen through divine consultation. Both faced the village the next day to publicly apologize for their deceit. There was a palpable air of disgrace around them, but also an undertone of tragedy, a reminder that even well intended actions can lead to disastrous outcomes when they deviate from the path of truth. The prophetic words that Malik was born to lead seemed to be materializing as the village prospered in unexpected ways. Crops yielded more, disputes among villagers lessened, and a newfound unity took root. Even Idris, humbled by his public disgrace, found a path to redemption through sincere atonement. Zara, though stripped of her title, began a quiet life of reflection, her wisdom no longer mingled with manipulation. Thus, in a village that had been shaken to its core, a new dawn emerged, brighter, wiser, and full of promise. While challenges would undoubtedly arise, the community had been fortified by the irreplaceable virtues of truth and unity, and that made all the difference. And so, Layla, Rafi, and Malik stood at the threshold of a promising new life, their hearts aligned with the enduring wisdom that truth, once revealed, has the power to heal, unite, and herald a brighter future. Thank you for joining us on this heartfelt journey. Life often takes us through winding paths and challenges, but every step leads us closer to truth and freedom. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss out on more magical and thought-provoking tales. We look forward to sharing more stories with you soon.